My name's Barry, and I'm director of Goliath Playing with Reality.
And my name's May, and I'm the co-director and the founder of Anagram, the studio that made Goliath, that makes immersive experiences about social impact issues.
Goliath is an immersive VR experience free to download and enjoy on the Oculus Store. It's a documentary that fuses animation, gameplay, and meaningful interaction to bring audience closer to one man's experience of living with schizophrenia and psychosis. In Goliath, we encounter John, whose moniker is Goliath due to his enormous size in real life. John takes us through chapters of his life, reflecting on how gaming helped him over the years through escape in the early years and later on through friendships forged online. I'm going to show you a trailer.
Can you tell the difference between what is and isn't real? When the one thing that links you to the outside world disappears, where does that leave you?
Schizophrenia is not a proven illness. It's something that I understand that you can't tell what's real and what isn't real.
Disruptiveness and having unusual thoughts, having your thoughts kind of...
I do recognize the difference between myself and other people in some respects.
Everything you see is just part of the game.
A distortion.
Everything you feel
Now I sound crazy.
is real.
So, schizophrenia is an isolating condition. A diagnosis of schizophrenia can mean a decreased life expectancy of 20 years, and this is largely down to societal prejudice. Friendships are literally a lifeline. The history of representation of schizophrenia is unfortunately a bad one, full of fictitious monsters and violent bogeymen. People are afraid of this condition. We set out to tell a different story about this condition. We figured that VR would offer an opportunity to tell this story from the inside out, allowing an audience to not just hear the testimony of someone living with this condition, but to also question the fallibility of their own reality. We strove to build a relationship between the audience and the protagonist where experiences were shared, where the character was not pitied or vilified or idolized. Where the audience, regardless of their attitude to games, will by the end of this experience have become a gamer and in the cramped space of a messy flat see how far one person gaming literally saved their life. Got them out of bed in the morning, chased away the persecuting voices through a game controller and a headset.
So when we started the research on the project, we collaborated with a charity called Mind, and we ran a number of workshops with people who had a diagnosis of schizophrenia or bipolar, and we asked them about how they would represent their experiences of psychosis. And most importantly, if they could make that as a representation, who was the most important person in their lives that needed to see it? And we were really surprised actually, because every single person said to us that they really needed their doctor to understand what they went through. And we'd kind of assumed that doctors are most likely to have a really good understanding of what's going on in somebody's condition. But the things that we heard were very much about how they experienced a lack of empathy, how they felt that they were treated like a label or a condition rather than a person. So partly when we were thinking about how we wanted to use VR, we very much wanted to use it not to tell somebody's story from the outside, but to give people who were doing the experience a momentary glimpse of what it might feel like to be in a mistaken reality, which they might perceive to be real. And VR, in a way, is like an extremely relevant metaphor for what happens when you're having a psychotic episode. So, through using a character called Echo, which was played by Tilda Swinton, you're also guided in the onboarding of the experience into what your perception is doing at different times in the story. So I'm just going to play an extract.
Now, feel the weight of your hands. Squeeze them gently. You can see them here. You can feel them there. But where are they really?
So, as you're aware, gamers have a reputation for being merciless in their opinions, and we were very apprehensive on how Goliath was going to be received by the community. It's not a game, and it's on a gaming platform, so we buckled down the hatches and expected the worst. And so the reviews started coming in. What's the point? From Crimson Crow 2010, and it was pretty much what we feared would happen.
But then the next day, the tide changed a bit for Goliath, and Tony, Rainbow, 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 kind of stepped up to defend us on Twitter and gave us his review of Crimson Crow's review. And as the experience kind of percolated a little bit through the ranks of the Quest store, much more reviews came in, and they really surprised us. And they really kind of came from a range of different kinds of people. So people like Glitchy Dancer was a particular kind of group that talked around how their experiences, their first-hand experiences of schizophrenia, meant that they really related to the experience. They talked about it. It took you took the game right out of my mind. And then people from different walks of life talked about how gaming for them has been in some way kind of a form of salvation during their own mental health issues. Big Red Juan, as an Afghan war veteran, I too have found myself immersed in gaming as a way to regain my sanity. It's the only way I feel connected to humanity. Cap 616, I was super high when I watched this and cried. I watched it again later in the evening, much more sober, and still cried. So we started seeing extremely long reviews, people taking a lot of time to talk around their experiences of mental health problems and how that community of gamers had been really significant. But also people in the mental health industry, such as Sukusi here, talking about how it was really important for people in that line of work to see the project. And so here's an extract from a quick interview we did outside one of the screenings with a doctor who came to see the piece.
I work in healthcare, I work in an A&E department, and I think I have got a very fixed idea in my own head about what I understand by mental illness and what I understand by schizophrenia. And I think this is going to make me reappraise what those assumptions really are.
And so the piece has kind of taken a life of its own. Since its screenings and its launch on the Oculus Store, what started off as a game has now been picked up by several hospitals and teaching institutions that are in contact with us around using it as a teaching aid for their students or their healthcare professionals, and also work with us in developing an extension of the project, which means that it can be used as a learning tool. Which is a really fascinating journey for something that started off as a story and perhaps almost a game. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.